I woke up that Thursday morning in January to the sound of an engine revving outside my window, which was strange because my property in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, sat on 20 acres of mostly frozen water and dense pine forest. I threw on a hoodie and walked to my lakeside window, coffee mug in hand, and nearly dropped it when I saw a silver Escalade parked right in the middle of my frozen lake, about 50 yards from shore. My name is Walter Jensen, and I had moved to this property 6 months ago after selling my tech startup in Chicago. The whole point of buying this place was privacy and peace. The house sat on the southern shore of a private lake that was entirely within my property boundaries. I had the surveys, the deeds, everything documented when I purchased it. This was my land, my lake, my sanctuary. But apparently, someone had missed that memo. I pulled on my winter boots and parka, grabbed my phone, and headed outside. The temperature was maybe 15 degrees, and the snow crunched under my feet as I made my way down to the lake. The ice was solid, probably 18 inches thick at this point in the season, but seeing a full-size SUV parked out there still made me nervous. As I got closer, I could see a woman sitting in the driver's seat talking on her phone. I walked carefully onto the ice and approached the vehicle. The woman inside looked to be in her mid-50s, with that distinctive haircut that seemed to be a universal warning sign, short and severely angled. She was wearing oversized sunglasses despite the overcast sky, and had her phone pressed to her ear with one hand, while gesturing dramatically with the other. I knocked on her window. She held up a finger at me, the universal sign for wait, and continued her conversation. I could hear her muffled voice through the glass, something about a book club meeting and someone named Deborah who had apparently brought the wrong kind of wine. I waited about 30 seconds, then knocked again, harder this time. The woman finally lowered her window about 2 inches, not even looking at me. "I will be with you in a moment. I'm on an important call." "You are parked on my private property," I said, keeping my voice level. "I need you to move your vehicle." She turned to look at me then, lowering her sunglasses just enough to give me a withering look over the frames. "Excuse me? This is a public lake. I have every right to be here. I will move when I am finished with my call." "This is not a public lake," I said. "This is my private property, all of it, including the water." She laughed, actually laughed, and went back to her phone call. "Marcia, you would not believe this. Some man is claiming that this beautiful public lake is his private property." Yes, I know. The audacity. I felt my jaw clench. I pulled out my phone and started recording a video. "Madam, for the third time, you need to move your vehicle off my property immediately." She finally ended her call and turned to face me fully, rolling down her window the rest of the way. "Young man, I am Patricia Harrington, president of the Lakeshore Estates Homeowners Association. I've lived in this community for 23 years, and this lake has always been public access. Just because you bought some property nearby does not mean you own the water." "Lakeshore Estates is 2 miles from here," I said, still recording. "And yes, I do own the water. I own this entire lake. It is completely within my property boundaries." Patricia's face was turning red now, and not just from the cold. "That is absolutely ridiculous. Lakes cannot be privately owned in Wisconsin. That is the law." "Actually, that is not the law," I said. "Navigable lakes over a certain size are public in Wisconsin, but this is a small, non-navigable private lake that falls entirely within my property lines. I have the surveys to prove it." "Well, I do not believe you," she said, crossing her arms. "And even if what you are saying were true, which it is not, you would still have to allow public access. It is the law." I took a deep breath, trying to remain calm. "It is not the law. And I am giving you one more chance to move your vehicle before I call the sheriff." Patricia laughed again, that condescending laugh that made my blood pressure spike. "Oh, please, call the sheriff. Sheriff Morrison and I serve on the County Beautification Committee together. He will tell you exactly what I am telling you. This is public land, and I have every right to be here. In fact, I am scouting this location for our HOA Winter Festival next month. We were thinking of having it here since the lake by our neighborhood is too small." "You want to have a festival on my private property?" "On public land," she corrected. "Really, your attitude is quite unwelcoming. This is a community, not your personal kingdom." I had heard enough. I called the non-emergency line for the Walworth County Sheriff's Office while Patricia sat in her Escalade looking smug. When the dispatcher answered, I explained the situation. Someone is trespassing on my property, on my private lake, and refusing to leave. The dispatcher took down the details and said a deputy would be out within the hour. I thanked her and hung up, then looked back at Patricia, who was now taking selfies in her driver's seat with the frozen lake in the background. "Deputy is on the way," I said. "Good," Patricia replied. "I look forward to them explaining property law to you." Rather than stand out in the cold arguing with her, I went back to my house to grab the property surveys and deed. I had all the documents in a file in my home office, neatly organized from the purchase. The survey clearly showed my property boundaries, with the lake entirely contained within them. The deed specifically mentioned the lake and confirmed my ownership of the water rights. I made copies of everything, put them in a folder, and headed back outside. Patricia was now standing next to her Escalade, taking more photos. As I walked back onto the ice, I saw another car pulling up to my property, a white Mercedes SUV. A woman who looked to be in her early 40s got out, wearing a cream-colored parka that probably cost more than my first car. She waved at Patricia and carefully made her way onto the ice. "Patricia, darling," the new arrival called out, "I got your text. Is this the location?" "Yes, Penelope," Patricia said, gesturing around. "I think this would be perfect for the winter festival, much more space than our little pond." I walked up to them, folder in hand. "This is private property. Both of you need to leave." Penelope looked at me with surprise, as if she had not even noticed me standing there. "Oh, hello. Are you the caretaker?" "I am the owner," I said. "The owner of what?" Penelope asked, looking genuinely confused. "The owner of all of this," I gestured around. "The lake, the land, everything you are currently standing on." Patricia jumped in before I could continue. "He is claiming that this public lake is his private property. I have tried to explain the law to him, but he does not seem to understand." "Oh dear," Penelope said, giving me a sympathetic look that made me want to scream. "It is a common misunderstanding. Lakefront property can be confusing. You own your land up to the water, but the water itself is public." "Not in this case," I said, opening my folder. "This is a private, non-navigable lake entirely within my property boundaries. Here is the survey, here is the deed. Both clearly show that I own this lake." Penelope took the papers from me, holding them delicately as if they might be contaminated. She glanced at them for maybe 5 seconds before handing them back. "Well, these could be forged. Anyone can print official-looking documents these days." I stared at her in disbelief. "Why would I forge property documents?" "To try to keep people off public land," Patricia interjected. "It is more common than you would think. People get possessive about the areas near their homes." "This is insane," I muttered, but kept my phone recording. The absurdity of the situation was almost entertaining at this point, in a deeply frustrating way. "What is insane is you trying to intimidate 2 women who are simply exercising their legal rights," Patricia said, her voice getting louder. "This is harassment. I could file a complaint about this." Before I could respond, I heard the crunch of tires on snow and turned to see a sheriff's department SUV pulling up to my driveway. A deputy got out, a man in his 30s with a professional demeanor. He made his way down to the lake, walking carefully on the ice. "Morning, folks," he said. "I am Deputy Chen. I got a call about a property dispute?" "Yes, officer," Patricia jumped in immediately. "This man is trying to claim that this public lake is his private property and is attempting to force us to leave." Deputy Chen looked at me. "Sir, what is your side of this?" I handed him the folder with my documents. "I am Walter Jensen. I own this property. That survey shows my boundaries, which include this entire lake. These women are trespassing and refusing to leave when asked." Deputy Chen took his time reviewing the documents, actually reading them thoroughly, unlike Penelope. After a few minutes, he looked up. "Madam," he addressed Patricia, "this survey does show that the lake is within his property boundaries. This appears to be private property." Patricia's face went through several shades of red. "That is impossible. Lakes are public in Wisconsin. Everyone knows that." "Navigable lakes are public," Deputy Chen said patiently, "but this appears to be a small, private lake. Sir, do you have documentation on the lake's classification?" I pulled out my phone and showed him the email from my real estate attorney that I had saved, which included the state's determination that the lake was non-navigable and therefore could be privately owned. Deputy Chen nodded. Okay, this seems pretty clear. Madam, you are going to need to move your vehicle off his property. This is outrageous, Patricia sputtered. I am on the County Beautification Committee. I know Sheriff Morrison personally. He is going to hear about this. Madam, you are welcome to discuss this with the sheriff, but right now you need to move your vehicle. You are trespassing. Penelope touched Patricia's arm. Maybe we should just go and sort this out later. I will not be bullied off public land, Patricia declared. She pulled out her phone. I am calling our HOA attorney right now. Deputy Chen sighed. Madam, you can call whoever you want, but you need to do it from off this gentleman's property. If you refuse to leave, I will have to cite you for trespassing. Patricia dialed a number on her phone, putting it on speaker. A man's voice answered. Harrington Law Offices, this is Mark Harrington. Mark, it is Patricia, she said, her voice dripping with drama. I am being threatened with a trespassing citation while standing on public land. There is a deputy here who does not seem to understand property law. I heard a sigh from the other end of the phone. Patricia, where are you? I'm at the public lake off Thornwood Road, scouting for our winter festival. There was a pause. What lake? There's no public lake on Thornwood Road. The big lake, right off the road, you can see it from the street. Another pause, longer this time. Patricia, are you talking about the private lake on the Jensen property? Patricia's confident expression faltered slightly. It cannot be private. It is a lake. It is absolutely private. I reviewed the title work when Mr. Jensen purchased the property. The lake is entirely within his boundaries and is classified as non-navigable. If you are on that lake without permission, you are trespassing. The silence that followed was beautiful. Patricia's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Penelope took a step back, clearly wanting to distance herself from the situation. But that cannot be right, Patricia finally managed. I've been coming to this area for years. To look at it from the road, perhaps, Mark Harrington's voice came through the speaker. But the property is private. Patricia, I strongly suggest you leave immediately before this becomes a legal issue. Patricia ended the call without saying goodbye, her hand shaking slightly. This is not over, she said to me, her voice tight with barely controlled anger. The HOA will be looking into this. The HOA has no jurisdiction here, I said. This property is not part of your association. We will see about that, Patricia said. She got into her Escalade and started the engine. Penelope practically ran to her Mercedes. Deputy Chen watched as both vehicles carefully made their way off the ice and drove away. He turned to me. Sorry about that, Mr. Jensen. Some people have a hard time understanding property boundaries. I appreciate you coming out, I said. Do I need to file a formal complaint? I would recommend it, just to have it on record in case they come back. I will write up a report on this incident as well. After Deputy Chen left, I went back inside, exhausted despite it being only 10 in the morning. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. 3 days later, I found a letter in my mailbox. It was from the Lakeshore Estates Homeowners Association, addressed to me. I opened it standing right there by the mailbox, curious what they could possibly want. The letter informed me that my property had been inadvertently included in the Lakeshore Estates HOA boundaries due to a mapping error, and that I now owed 3 years of back dues, totaling $8,400. Furthermore, my unauthorized use of the community lake for private purposes was in violation of HOA bylaws, and I needed to cease and desist immediately. I read the letter 3 times, each time getting more bewildered. My property was 2 miles from Lakeshore Estates. I had never signed any HOA agreement. This was completely fabricated. I called my real estate attorney, Sarah Mitchell, and read her the letter. They cannot do that, she said immediately. You are not part of their HOA. There was no HOA agreement in your title work. This is completely baseless. So what do? Write a response denying their claims. I will draft it for you, send it certified mail, and document everything. If they keep harassing you, we may need to pursue legal action against them. Sarah sent me a draft response that afternoon, and I sent it certified mail the next day. The letter clearly stated that I was not a member of their HOA, had never agreed to be, and that any further harassment would result in legal action. I thought that would be the end of it. Again, I was wrong. 2 weeks later, I woke up on a Saturday morning to the sound of chainsaws. I looked out my window and saw 3 men cutting down trees at the edge of my property line, the side that faced the road. I threw on clothes and ran outside. "Hey, what are you doing? This is my property." One of the men shut off his chainsaw. "We are from Greenwood Landscaping. We have a work order from the Lakeshore Estates HOA to clear this brush. It is overgrown and violates community standards." "This is not part of the HOA," I said. "This is private property, and you are trespassing." The man looked uncomfortable. He pulled out a work order on his phone and showed it to me. It clearly listed my address and mentioned removal of overgrown vegetation blocking sightlines per HOA code. "I do not care what your work order says," I told him. "You do not have my permission to cut anything on my property. Leave now, or I'm calling the sheriff." The 3 workers looked at each other, then started packing up their equipment. "Sorry, man, we just do what we're told. We will contact the HOA about this." After they left, I called Sarah Mitchell again. They sent landscapers to my property to cut down trees. Did they cut anything? They started to, but I stopped them. "Take photos of any damage. This is beyond harassment now. They are engaging in property damage and possibly fraud. I think we need to file a cease and desist order and possibly a lawsuit." Over the next week, Sarah prepared legal documents while I documented everything. I installed security cameras around my property, especially facing the road and the lake. It was a good thing I did. The following weekend, I was in my home office when I got a motion alert from my lake camera. I pulled up the feed on my computer and could not believe what I was seeing. There were about 30 people on my frozen lake, setting up tables and tents. I grabbed my phone, made sure it was fully charged, and headed outside. As I got closer, I could see this was a full event setup. Someone had brought a generator and was running it. There were tables with food, space heaters, and even a banner that read, "Lakeshore Estates Winter Festival." Patricia was there, of course, directing people like a general commanding troops. She saw me approaching and actually smiled. "Mr. Jensen," she called out, "so nice of you to join us. As you can see, we have decided to hold our winter festival here after all. I trust you will not make a scene in front of all these families." I started recording on my phone, making sure to get everything in frame. "Patricia, all of these people are trespassing on my private property. I need everyone to leave immediately." She walked up to me, still wearing that condescending smile. "Now, we have been over this. Our HOA attorney has confirmed that this lake is actually within the boundaries of Lakeshore Estates, which makes it community property. You really need to check your facts before making these accusations." "Your HOA attorney is your husband," I said, "and he is the one who told you this is private property when you called him the first time." Patricia's smile tightened. "I do not know what you are talking about. Mark has reviewed the community boundaries, and this area is definitely part of our HOA." A man approached us, wearing a puffy jacket and an expression of concern. "Is there a problem, Patricia?" "No problem, Gerald," Patricia said. "Just a misunderstanding about property lines." I turned to Gerald and the crowd that was starting to gather. "My name is Walter Jensen, and you are all currently trespassing on my private property. This lake is entirely within my property boundaries, which I can prove with surveys and deeds. You need to leave now." Gerald looked uncertain. "Patricia said this was HOA property." "Patricia lied," I said bluntly. I pulled up the property survey on my phone and showed it to Gerald and several others who had gathered around. "See these boundary lines? The lake is completely inside my property." More people were looking now, and I could see doubt spreading through the crowd. Patricia's face was getting red again. "Those documents could be fake," she insisted. "We have our own surveys that show different boundaries." "Then show them," I said. "Right now. Show everyone your surveys that supposedly prove this is HOA property." Patricia fumbled with her phone. "I do not have them with me. They are at the HOA office." "How convenient," I said. I turned to address the crowd directly. "I have given you all fair warning. You are trespassing. I have security footage of all of you. If you do not leave in the next 5 minutes, I am calling the sheriff's department and pressing charges against every single person here." People started moving immediately, parents gathering their kids, others folding up chairs. Patricia tried to stop them. "Do not let him intimidate you. We have every right to be here." But the exodus had begun. Nobody wanted to risk a trespassing charge over a winter festival. Within 10 minutes, the lake was clear except for Patricia, Penelope, and a few other women who I assumed were on the HOA board. "You're making a huge mistake," Patricia said to me, her voice shaking with rage. "The HOA has lawyers. We have resources. We will bury you in legal fees." "Try it," I said. "My attorney is already preparing a lawsuit against the HOA for harassment, attempted property damage, and fraud. Every interaction we have had is documented and recorded. So please, by all means, escalate this." Penelope touched Patricia's arm again. "Maybe we should go talk to Mark about this." "Fine," Patricia spat. "But this is not over, not by a long shot." They left, and I stood alone on my lake, filming the tire tracks and footprints in the snow as evidence. I sent all the footage to Sarah Mitchell, who called me within an hour. "This is good," she said. "Really good for our case. They have now trespassed multiple times, attempted to hold an unauthorized event on your property, and made false claims about HOA boundaries. I'm going to file the lawsuit on Monday." "What are we suing for?" "Harassment, intentional infliction of emotional distress, attempted property damage, and we are going to request an injunction preventing them from coming onto your property or making any further claims about it. I'm also going to file complaints with the state bar about Mark Harrington's conduct if he is really giving legal advice that contradicts what he told Patricia in that first phone call." That Monday, Sarah filed the lawsuit. By Wednesday, I received a response, not from Mark Harrington, but from a different law firm. Apparently, even Mark had realized he was too conflicted to handle this. The new attorney, a woman named Rebecca Stone from a firm in Milwaukee, sent a letter stating that the HOA maintained its position that my property was within their boundaries and that they would fight the lawsuit vigorously. They also filed a countersuit claiming that I had interfered with a community event and caused emotional distress to HOA members. "This is going to get worse before it gets better," Sarah warned me, "but we have the truth on our side, and we have evidence. They have nothing but bluster." She was right about it getting worse. Over the next month, I received citations from the HOA for various violations, everything from not maintaining my lawn to the proper standard, which was impossible since it was under 3 feet of snow, to having unauthorized structures, meaning my house, which had been there for 30 years before the HOA even existed. Each citation came with a fine. I was supposedly now up to $23,000 in HOA fines and back dues. I forwarded every single letter to Sarah, who added them to our evidence file. "They are just digging themselves deeper," she said. "Every one of these letters is more evidence of harassment." The breaking point came in March. The ice on the lake was starting to thin, and I had put up signs warning people to stay off. Spring in Wisconsin could be dangerous, with warming temperatures making the ice unstable. I was working from home when I got a security alert. I pulled up the camera feed and felt my stomach drop. Patricia was on the ice again, this time with a group of about 5 other women. They were setting up what looked like surveying equipment. I grabbed my phone and coat and ran outside. As I got closer, I could hear Patricia talking. "We are just going to document our own boundaries," she was saying, "and then we will have proof that this is HOA property." "Get off the ice right now," I shouted as I approached. "It is not safe. The ice is melting." "Oh, here he is again," Patricia said to her group, "the property tyrant." "I am serious. The ice is not thick enough anymore. You could fall through." "It is fine," Patricia said dismissively. "It is still frozen solid." As if to prove me right, there was a loud crack. Everyone froze. "Everyone move slowly toward shore," I said, keeping my voice calm but firm. "Nice and slow, spread out." Patricia opened her mouth to argue, but another crack echoed across the lake, and I saw water starting to seep up through a fissure in the ice about 20 feet from where they were standing. The other women started moving immediately, but Patricia stood her ground. "I am not going to be intimidated by some ice cracking. This is normal." "Patricia, move now," one of the other women called from the shore. "Please." I was already calling 911 as I carefully moved closer to Patricia. There is someone on unstable ice on my property. I need emergency services. Patricia finally seemed to realize the danger and started walking toward shore, but she was moving too fast. I saw her foot punch through the ice before I could warn her. She went down to her knee in the frigid water, screaming. I stayed on the phone with the dispatcher while carefully approaching Patricia. "Do not move," I told her. "Lie flat to distribute your weight." "Get away from me," she shrieked, but she was panicking now, trying to pull her leg out of the hole, which only made it worse. I got as close as I dared and extended my arm. "Grab my hand, now." She hesitated for just a second, then grabbed my hand. I pulled, keeping my weight distributed, and managed to help her get her leg out of the water. We both crawled toward shore, moving slowly and carefully. By the time we reached solid ground, I could hear sirens in the distance. Patricia's leg was soaked and already turning red from the cold. The other women wrapped her in jackets and got her into her car with the heater running. The ambulance arrived, along with the fire department and, once again, Deputy Chen. The paramedics checked Patricia for hypothermia while Deputy Chen took statements. "Mr. Jensen warned us to get off the ice," one of the other women told the deputy. "He said it was dangerous, but Patricia wanted to finish what we were doing." Deputy Chen looked at Patricia, who was wrapped in blankets in the back of the ambulance. "Madam, what were you doing on the ice?" "We were conducting a boundary survey," Patricia said through chattering teeth. "This is HOA property, and we have a right to access it." "Madam, we have been over this. This is not HOA property, and Mr. Jensen is right. The ice is dangerously thin this time of year. You are lucky you did not fall all the way through." The paramedics decided to transport Patricia to the hospital as a precaution. Before she left, she looked at me with pure hatred in her eyes. "I will see you in court," she said. "Looking forward to it," I replied. After everyone left, I went back inside and called Sarah Mitchell to update her. When I told her what had happened, she was quiet for a moment. "She could have died," Sarah said finally. "And she still insisted it was HOA property? Even as she was being treated for potential hypothermia." "Okay, we are adding reckless endangerment to the lawsuit. They put multiple people at risk by trespassing on unsafe ice despite warnings. This has gone way beyond a simple property dispute." The lawsuit went to court in May. I had been dreading it, expecting a long, drawn-out trial, but it ended up being almost anticlimactic. Sarah presented our evidence, a complete timeline of every interaction, every trespassing incident, every fake citation, all backed up by photos, videos, security footage, and documentation. The property surveys and deeds were entered into evidence, along with the state classification of the lake as non-navigable and private. Rebecca Stone, representing the HOA, tried to argue that there had been a legitimate dispute over boundaries. But when Sarah showed the recording of Mark Harrington's phone call, where he clearly stated the lake was private property, that argument fell apart. The judge, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s named Judge Martinez, reviewed everything carefully. When Rebecca tried to present the HOA's survey showing different boundaries, Judge Martinez cut her off. "Counselor, this is a hand-drawn map with no official seals, no surveyor's signature, and no basis in any recorded documentation. Do you have any actual evidence that contradicts the plaintiff's surveys and deeds?" Rebecca admitted they did not. Judge Martinez ruled in my favor on every count. The HOA was ordered to pay damages for harassment and emotional distress, reimburse my legal fees, and was issued a permanent injunction preventing them or any of their members from entering my property without explicit written permission. The judge also referred Mark Harrington to the State Bar for professional review. But the real shock came when Judge Martinez addressed Patricia directly. She had shown up to court with her leg in a walking boot, still recovering from her plunge through the ice. "Mrs. Harrington," the judge said, "your actions went beyond simple trespassing. You endangered yourself and others by going onto unstable ice after being warned of the danger. You organized multiple trespassing events on property you knew or should have known was private. You sent workers to damage trees on someone else's property. And you attempted to collect fraudulent fees by claiming jurisdiction where none existed." The judge paused, looking at Patricia over her glasses. "I am ordering you to personally pay an additional $10,000 in punitive damages to Mr. Jensen, and I'm referring this matter to the district attorney's office for review of potential criminal charges." Patricia's face went white. "Your Honor, I was just trying to do what I thought was right for the community." "What you did was harass a private citizen, trespass repeatedly, and commit what appears to be fraud and attempted extortion," Judge Martinez said. "Your intentions are irrelevant. Your actions were illegal." The courtroom was silent. Rebecca Stone looked like she wanted to disappear into the floor. Sarah Mitchell was trying not to smile. After the ruling, Sarah and I walked out of the courthouse together. "That went better than I expected," she said. "What happens now?" "They pay you the money the court ordered, they leave you alone, and hopefully Patricia learns a lesson. As for criminal charges, that is up to the DA." 2 weeks later, I got a certified check from the Lakeshore Estates HOA for the full amount ordered by the court, including my legal fees, damages, and Patricia's personal punitive damages. There was no note, no apology, just the check. I also received a letter from the new HOA president, a man named David Chen, who, as it turned out, was Deputy Chen's uncle. The letter apologized for the entire situation and informed me that Patricia had been removed from her position as president and banned from holding any HOA office in the future. The letter also confirmed that the HOA fully acknowledged my property boundaries and would ensure all members were informed. In June, I got a call from an assistant district attorney named Michael Torres. He informed me that after reviewing the case, they had decided to file criminal charges against Patricia for fraud and attempted extortion related to the fake HOA fees and violations. They were also charging her with reckless endangerment for the ice incident. "We take these kinds of cases seriously," Michael told me. "HOA abuse is a real problem, and when someone crosses the line into criminal behavior, they need to be held accountable." Patricia's criminal trial was in August. I had to testify, going through the entire timeline again. Patricia's defense attorney tried to paint her as a well-meaning community member who had made mistakes, but the evidence was overwhelming. The prosecutor presented the fake violation notices, the fraudulent fee demands, the recordings of Patricia insisting the property was public even after being shown proof otherwise, and the footage of her going onto the dangerous ice after being warned. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. They found Patricia guilty of fraud and reckless endangerment. The attempted extortion charge was dropped as part of a plea agreement, which disappointed me, but the prosecutor explained that the other charges were more solid. At sentencing in September, Judge Martinez, who was also handling the criminal case, sentenced Patricia to 2 years of probation, 200 hours of community service, and ordered her to pay an additional $5,000 in restitution to me for the costs associated with the criminal case. Patricia was also ordered to have no contact with me, directly or indirectly. "Mrs. Harrington," Judge Martinez said at the sentencing, "you held a position of trust in your community, and you abused that position to harass and intimidate someone who had done nothing wrong. You need to understand that being part of a homeowners association does not give you power over people outside that association, and even within it, you are bound by law and ethics. I hope you use this probationary period to reflect on your actions and make better choices in the future." Patricia said nothing, just stared straight ahead with a blank expression. Her husband, Mark, was sitting behind her, and he looked like he had aged 10 years since this all started. I later heard through the local rumor mill that the state bar had suspended his license for 6 months for the ethical violations related to giving Patricia bad legal advice that contradicted what he knew to be true. Life finally went back to normal after that. I spent the rest of the summer and fall enjoying my property without any surprise visitors. I put in a dock for the first time and actually got to use my lake the way I had always intended, peacefully and privately. In October, I got a handwritten letter in the mail. It was from one of the women who had been with Patricia on the ice that day. Her name was Susan, and she wrote to apologize for her role in the trespassing and to thank me for helping Patricia even after everything she had done. "I realize now that we were completely in the wrong," she wrote. "Patricia was very convincing, and we trusted her judgment, but watching how you handled everything, especially pulling Patricia out of the ice when you could have just called for help and waited, showed me that this was never about being mean or possessive. You were just defending your rights, and you were the better person throughout. Thank you." I wrote back thanking her for the apology and telling her that I held no ill will toward any of the HOA members who had been misled by Patricia. The real anger I had felt was reserved for Patricia herself, who had knowingly lied and manipulated people to try to get what she wanted. In December, almost exactly a year after that first morning when I saw Patricia's Escalade on my frozen lake, I was sitting in my living room with a mug of hot chocolate, watching the snow fall over the water. The lake was starting to freeze again, that beautiful transition from liquid to solid that made winter in Wisconsin so magical. My phone rang. It was Deputy Chen. "Hey, Mr. Jensen, just wanted to give you a heads up. We have been seeing posts on social media about people wanting to check out the lake that was in the news. Just want to make sure you are aware in case anyone shows up." "Thanks for the warning," I said. "I will keep an eye out. Also wanted to let you know my Uncle David, the HOA president, has been working hard to reform things at Lakeshore Estates. They have new bylaws, better oversight, and a lot more transparency. He wanted me to pass along that there will not be any more problems from that direction." I appreciate that. After hanging up, I did see a few cars slow down near my property over the next few weeks, people trying to get a look at the infamous private lake. But nobody tried to come onto the property, and eventually the attention faded. I spent Christmas alone that year, which I had planned. I'd moved to Wisconsin for peace and solitude, and I finally had it. The lawsuit and criminal case had been exhausting, but they had also been necessary. Sometimes standing up for yourself is not about being confrontational or difficult. It is about maintaining boundaries and not letting people walk all over you just because they are aggressive or persistent. On New Year's Eve, I was out on my deck looking at the stars when I heard a car pull up. I tensed, ready for another confrontation, but it was just David Chen, the new HOA president. "Mr. Jensen," he called out as he walked up to my deck. "Sorry to bother you. I wanted to drop something off." He handed me a bottle of wine. "This is from the HOA board, a formal apology and a thank you." "A thank you?" "For not suing us into oblivion," David said with a rueful smile. "You could have asked for a lot more in damages. You could have made this much worse for everyone, but you kept it focused on the actual wrongdoing and the people responsible. A lot of our members were misled by Patricia, and they are grateful you did not go after them personally." "I was never interested in revenge," I said. "I just wanted to be left alone." "Well, you will be. I've made sure everyone understands your property boundaries and that there are serious consequences for anyone who violates them. I have also implemented new procedures for the HOA so that no one person can abuse their authority like Patricia did." We talked for a few more minutes, and David seemed like a genuinely good person trying to clean up someone else's mess. Before he left, he shook my hand. "Happy New Year, Mr. Jensen. I hope this next one is a lot quieter for you." "You and me both," I said. As I watched him drive away, I realized that the whole ordeal had taught me something important. There are always going to be people like Patricia in the world, people who think rules do not apply to them, who try to use positions of minor authority to bully others who refuse to admit when they are wrong. But there are also people like Deputy Chen, Sarah Mitchell, Judge Martinez, and David Chen, people who believe in fairness and accountability and doing the right thing even when it is hard. The new year started quietly, which was exactly what I wanted. I got back to the projects I had put on hold during the legal battle, finished setting up my home office properly, and even started planning some improvements to the property for spring. In February, I got an email from Michael Torres, the assistant district attorney. He let me know that Patricia had completed her first month of probation without incident and was working on her community service hours. He also mentioned that the case had sparked a review of HOA regulations in Walworth County, with the county board considering new oversight measures to prevent similar abuses in the future. "Your case has actually helped a lot of people," Michael wrote. "We have had several other complaints come in from people dealing with HOA overreach. Some of them are actionable, and we are pursuing them. So thank you for standing your ground and seeing this through." That made me feel good. I'd never wanted to be the center of attention or make some big statement about HOA abuse. I just wanted to live peacefully on my own property. But if my experience could help others in similar situations, then maybe all the stress and hassle had been worth it. March brought warmer weather and the annual worry about ice safety. This time, there was no Patricia on my lake, just the natural sounds of ice cracking and shifting as it began to melt. I put up my warning signs and monitored the lake through my security cameras, but the only visitors were deer and the occasional fox. In April, spring truly arrived. The ice melted completely, and I watched as the lake came back to life. There were fish jumping, birds nesting in the trees along the shore, and the peace I had been seeking when I bought this property finally felt real and permanent. I got a call from Sarah Mitchell checking in. "How are things going?" "Quiet," I said, finally. "Good. I have to say, in all my years of practice, your case was one of the most clear-cut examples of someone being completely in the right that I have ever seen. Usually there is some gray area, some legitimate dispute, but this was just straight-up harassment from start to finish. Whatever happened with Mark Harrington's bar complaint? He got his 6-month suspension, which ends next month. From what I hear, he has been doing a lot of pro bono work during his suspension, trying to rebuild his reputation. His marriage to Patricia is apparently on the rocks. I am not surprised. Neither am I. Anyway, I just wanted to check in and make sure you're doing okay. Let me know if you need anything." Summer was beautiful. I spent my days working remotely, taking breaks to kayak on my lake or fish from my dock. I met a few of my other neighbors, people who owned properties further down the road, and they were all friendly and respectful of boundaries. One of them, a retired teacher named Helen who lived about a mile away, brought me cookies in June and apologized for not reaching out sooner. "I heard about all the trouble you had with the HOA, she said. "That Patricia woman tried to tell me I was part of their association too, years ago. I sent her a very firm letter from my attorney and she backed off. But I heard she kept trying with other people." "Why did not anyone do anything about it sooner?" Helen shrugged. "Most people just ignored her. She was annoying but usually gave up if you stood firm. I think you buying the lake property bothered her because she could see it from the road and had convinced herself it was public land. Her ego could not handle being wrong. We became friends after that, Helen and I. She was in her 70s, sharp as a tack, and had lived in the area for 40 years. She filled me in on local history and introduced me to other neighbors who were not part of the HOA. In August, almost exactly a year after Patricia's criminal sentencing, I got a letter from her attorney. My first instinct was dread, but when I opened it, I was surprised. It was a formal letter of apology from Patricia herself. The letter was clearly written with legal guidance, probably required as part of her probation, but it acknowledged everything she had done wrong. She admitted to trespassing, to making false claims about HOA jurisdiction, to endangering herself and others on the ice, and to causing me significant distress and expense. She took full responsibility and apologized without making excuses. At the end, there was a handwritten note. "Mr. Jensen, I know this does not fix anything, but I truly am sorry. I let my pride and stubbornness turn a simple misunderstanding into a nightmare for both of us. I've had a lot of time to think about my actions, and I am ashamed of how I behaved. I hope you can enjoy your beautiful property in peace. You deserve that. Patricia." I read the letter several times. Part of me was skeptical, wondering if it was just legal maneuvering. But part of me wanted to believe that maybe, just maybe, she had actually learned something from all this. I wrote back a brief response. "Patricia, I accept your apology. I hope you have found some peace as well. Walter." I never heard from her again after that. As September rolled around, marking 2 full years since I had bought the property, I reflected on everything that had happened. The whole situation had been absurd from the start. The idea that someone could just park on my frozen lake and declare it public property was so ridiculous that if someone had told me the story, I would have thought it was exaggerated. But it had happened, and I had dealt with it. I had stood my ground, documented everything, followed the legal process, and come out the other side with my property rights intact and some measure of justice served. The property itself was everything I had wanted it to be. The lake was beautiful, year-round, the house was comfortable, and the privacy was absolute. I had space to think, to work, to just exist without the constant noise and pressure of the city. In October, David Chen stopped by again, this time to invite me to a community meeting. Not an HOA meeting, he clarified quickly. Just a general neighborhood gathering. Completely voluntary, no obligations, just people getting to know each other. We are trying to build a real community instead of just an enforcement organization. I thought about it and decided to go. The meeting was at a local community center, and there were maybe 40 people there, a mix of HOA members and non-members from the surrounding area. David ran the meeting efficiently, discussing things like road maintenance cooperation, a neighborhood watch program, and organizing a community yard sale. Patricia was not there, and when someone asked about her, David simply said she was no longer involved with the HOA and left it at that. Nobody pressed the issue. I ended up volunteering to help with the neighborhood watch program, which was ironic considering I had installed a comprehensive security system specifically because of neighborhood harassment. But it felt good to be part of something positive, to work with people who actually respected boundaries and wanted to cooperate rather than control. As winter approached again, I found myself looking forward to the snow and ice instead of dreading it. There would be no unwelcome visitors on my lake this year, no dramatic confrontations, no legal battles, just peace, quiet, and the natural beauty of Wisconsin winter. On the anniversary of that first morning when I had seen Patricia's Escalade on my frozen lake, I made myself coffee and stood at my window looking out at the ice. It was pristine, unmarked except for some animal tracks near the shore. My lake, my property, my peace. I thought about everything I had learned over the past 2 years. I had learned that standing up for yourself is not about being aggressive or confrontational. It is about knowing your rights, documenting everything, and following proper legal channels. I had learned that most people are reasonable when given accurate information, and that the truly unreasonable people usually dig their own graves if you give them enough rope. I had also learned that material possessions and property rights, while important, are not worth sacrificing your mental health over. If the situation had escalated beyond what it did, if Patricia had become truly dangerous instead of just annoying and entitled, I would have considered just selling the property and moving on. No piece of land is worth your life or sanity. But I had also learned that sometimes fighting back is the right choice, not just for yourself, but for others who might face similar situations. The reforms David Chen had implemented at the HOA, the county-level changes that were being discussed, even the Bar Association's actions against Mark Harrington, all of those things might prevent someone else from going through what I had gone through. In December, I got a Christmas card from Sarah Mitchell. Inside, she had written, "Thanks for being a client who was actually right. It made my job much easier. Enjoy your lake." I hung the card on my fridge and smiled. As the year came to a close, I realized that I was exactly where I wanted to be, both literally and figuratively. I had my property, my peace, and my principles intact. I'd stood up to a bully and won, not through aggression or escalation, but through patience, documentation, and the legal system working the way it was supposed to. On New Year's Eve, I stood on my deck again, looking at the stars reflecting off the frozen lake. The temperature was well below freezing, and the ice was thick and solid, probably 20 inches at least. Safe enough to walk on if I wanted to. But I stayed on my deck, comfortable and warm, watching the year turn over from the security of my own property. There was something poetic about that, about choosing to observe rather than intrude, about respecting boundaries even when they were your own. As midnight approached, I raised my mug of hot chocolate in a solitary toast. To property rights, I said to the empty air, to standing your ground, and to Karren finally leaving my frozen lake alone. The new year arrived quietly, just the way I liked it. And somewhere 2 miles away, at Lakeshore Estates, Patricia was probably celebrating with friends and family, serving her probation and hopefully living a quieter, more honest life. I did not wish her ill. I just wished her far away from my property. The next morning, I woke to fresh snow covering everything in a pristine white blanket. My lake was a smooth expanse of white on white, untouched and perfect. I made coffee, settled into my chair by the window, and opened my laptop to start work. This was what I had bought this property for. This peace, this quiet, this sense of being exactly where I belonged. It had taken a fight to secure it, a fight I had not wanted but had not backed down from. And now, finally, it was mine to enjoy. A deer walked across the frozen lake, leaving delicate tracks in the snow. A crow called from somewhere in the pine trees. The coffee was hot and strong, exactly the way I liked it. Life was good. The lake was mine. And Patricia was someone else's problem now, probably forever. That was the best ending I could have asked for.